Hey everyone, we're gonna go over how to create your timeline on your Famous American using this timeline generator from the readwritethink.org website. Okay, the first thing that you're gonna do is you're gonna type in your name. You need to type in your group number. Remember, I gave you group numbers for this. You probably will not be able to type everybody's name in here. I've tried it, and it's just there's only so many letters that will let you put in the box. Okay, you're going to type in your name, though, or your group name. I'm sorry. I'm going to type in my name, and we're going to very quickly go over the example that we did in class together. I'm only going to do about 4 events on this timeline. So again, we're going over our example that we did of Helen Keller. Okay, after you type in your group name and your Famous American's name, you're going to click Start. Okay, as you can see, I have my line. It says click tap timeline to add items. So remember, you have to have at least 10 events on this timeline, and 2 of those events should be when your Famous American was born and when your Famous American passed away. So we're going to click on the very beginning of the timeline because remember, timelines, like we learned, should come in chronological order. That means we're going to start with the time they're born and work all the way through their life in number order by the year and the dates. And by the end of this timeline, we will have when they passed away. Okay, so I'm going to click on the very beginning. When you click on that, remember your label is just the date. So I'm going to click on her date. I'm going to put in her date of birth, which was June 27th, 1880. Now remember, I've told you, you may not have an exact date for a lot of these events that we'll list on here, but you should have an exact date for the date of birth of your Famous American and for the date that your Famous American passed away. Okay, our short description is just going to be very short. So we're going to say Helen Keller is born. Okay, under the full description, I'm going to give a little bit more details. I'm going to say Helen Keller is born in Tuscumbia, Alabama. Okay. Now remember, we talked about adding images. We're not going to do that at this time. Maybe later this year we can look at creating another timeline and adding images. Okay, we're going to click the check mark because we are done creating our first event. So remember, I talked about staggering your events so that you have room for everything. So maybe your next one you want to put down at the bottom, and then the next one you want to put at the top, the next one you put at the bottom, and so on. Okay. All right. The next event I'm going to list is going to be in 1904. So I'm just going to move down the timeline some because this is at 1880. So I'm just going to move down some about right there. Now remember, if you need to move these events, let's say you figure out when you get towards the end of the timeline that you need to make more room for an event, or some of the events need to move down, or they need to move closer to the beginning of the timeline, you can move them, and I'll show you how in just a minute. So we're going to put in 1904. Okay, our short description is going to be Helen makes history by graduating. Okay, remember that is not a complete sentence. It's just a really quick to the point. Now, you must include in the full description, if you want all your points, you have to include a complete sentence about each event where you give a little bit more details. So for this, I'm going to say Helen was the first blind and deaf person to graduate from college. Okay, so that gave us a little bit more detail about how she made history. She was the first blind and deaf person to graduate from college. Okay, then we're going to click our check mark. Okay, I'm going to put this one down here. Now, if I decide, oh, I need to move this a little bit closer, or I need to move this a little bit this way, I can do that. And then all I have to do is click on the little blue box with our date and event listed in it and move it over, okay? All right, the next event that I'm going to list was in 1946. So I'm going to move down about right there. I'm going to type it in, 1946. My short description is going to be Helen makes an impact around the world. Okay, for my full description, I'm going to type in that Helen visited 35 different countries. Okay, this is where she made an impact because she spoke on behalf of disabled people and many governments opened schools for the blind and deaf. Okay, so that's how she made an impact around the world. And then we're going to click our check mark, and then there's our next event. And then I'm going to just put this one up here. Okay, now if I decide later on that I want to move this down here, I can. Alright, and then I'm just going to add one more event. My very last event, of course, will be when Helen Keller passed away. So I do know the exact date of this, as you should about your famous American. It was June the 1st of 1968. My short description is going to be Helen's death. And I'm going to say Helen died at the age of 88. And then I can be a little bit more detailed if I'd like to, but, you know, this gave her age. And, you know, that's fine. If you know where they passed away, then you can put that on there. All right, then I'm going to click my check mark. And then maybe I'm going to put this one down here, the bottom. All right, so you should have at least 10 events. You should give the exact date if it's their date of birth and when they passed away. Now, for the rest of the events, you don't have to have any exact dates unless you know them. Then, you know, please do use those dates. You've got to give a short description, and then you've got to give a complete sentence for each of these events if you want full credit. Okay, after we've created that, we're going to click Finish. And this just shows us what our timeline looks like. There's 2 pages. This first page shows us the timeline. The second page gives us the detailed sentences that we wrote. So this is why it's important that you follow those directions, because this gives more information about the timeline and the event. This gives more information about the event of your famous American. So all you're going to do is you can click Print Final. Okay, and then, of course, print it out. Or when you get done, you'll let me know, and I'll come and help you save it. You click Save Final. So I'll help you with that, okay? If you have any questions when you create your timeline, please let me know, and I will be more than happy to help you.